Hi everyone, welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. This is Melanie, and today we are going to work on the next step in our organization series. And what we're going to talk about now is real estate, namely prime real estate and less desirable real estate within our craft space. For this week, we want to just take an assessment of our room and divide it into zones. I'm calling them 0 to zone 4. And I'm going to tell you how I define this. Of course, this is completely up to you and your particular circumstances, how you would look at these. But the idea being 0 is where you do your work. And as you move out to 4 is going to be less easily accessible space. For me, I'm defining zone 0 as my workspace and the 2 table tidies that I have on either side of my chair. And this is the real estate that I need to protect at all costs. I want to have as much workspace as possible. I don't want to have it cluttered with a lot of tools. I've done that in the past thinking, oh, it's so nice to have it. But what ends up happening is that it's just too much stuff, right? And it just feels like my space is already encroached on and I haven't even started. That is zone 0 for me. Zone 1 I define as anything within arm's reach. So in my particular case, if I turn my chair around, I have 4 Alex drawer units right then and there, which I can access. I can also access the shelves on top without actually getting off my chair. So these are the next best places for stuff that you use on an ongoing basis. Zone 2, I consider flat surfaces like countertops, easily accessible areas, but they may require movement to access. So also to the left and right of me, I have 2 Billy bookcases. I have a 3rd Billy bookcase just slightly to the left and the front. I have a 1x4 Calyx and I have 3 2x4 Calyx units, all open, all easily accessible. I do have to get off my chair to go and access those tools. Now you could define those further if you wanted to. I could say that the 2 Billy bookcases on the left and right of me are closer than the Calyx units that hold my stamps, because those are across from the other side of the table, and so I could separate them into separate zones. But to me, I'm just assessing it based on how easy I can access it. Whether I have to take 1 step or 4 steps really at this point doesn't matter. The point is that I can just quickly pull whatever it is out of the shelf and use it. Zone 3 is not as convenient, but it's still doable. And I'm actually defining my closet as zone 3, and really it's mostly zone 2 if I really want to be honest about it, because everything in there is pretty accessible for the most part. But I just thought what's nice about the closet is it does have doors, so I can close them. I never do have both of them closed, but I can close them. And it's kind of a very clear delineation from the rest of the room, if you will. And then the last zone that I defined is zone 4, which requires effort to access. So this would be the top of the closet. I can't really pull stuff down without a stepladder. And I also have a couple pockets in the room that I consider zone 4. So one of the Calyx units, I have 2 cubes that are blocked by carts. So I actually have to move 3 carts pretty much to access those 2, which is a bit of a pain. And one of the Billy bookcase to my right, the bottom 3 shelves are also blocked by a cart. So again, a little bit more difficult to access. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but this week's mission, if you will, is going to be a planning session. And I would like you to write down your different zones and what's in them currently, and if you think they should remain in the zone or if you think they should be moved. So what I've done is I've indicated, for instance, here I have 6x6 paper pads and I put a square box, meaning I'm open to this being moved somewhere else in the room if need be. So if I need this space for something else that I deem more important, then I will put that in here. I've also listed a number for each of the drawers in the Alex unit. I didn't go into all the specifics because I'm pretty sure this entire thing needs to be revamped. I never dealt with this last year, and it's at that point where it needs to be completely investigated and reassessed. So there may be stuff that's going to stay in here, but I think there's also stuff that can move out. I've also defined my zone 2 and my zone 3, and on this page here I actually wrote down each of the carts that I have. So I have 2 Raskogs, a Tim Holtz, and what I'm calling a file cart, and I also have a single cube on wheels that's actually tucked under my desk. And ideally I would like to eliminate at least 1 cart, but I don't know if that's going to be doable at this stage. We'll see how everything turns out over the course of this year. So things to consider. This week's all about planning. Dig deep and think about what you want to have in your zone 0. So zone 0 again is your desk and your workspace. These are items you use almost every time you craft. Be selective and honest with yourself. Do you really need whatever the thing is taking up prime real estate when you say use it only once a month? Basically, what you're trying to do is assess whether it's worth the price of admission, right? Do you want to give up space on your desk for that item? And if you do, that's fine, right? It's your space to allocate as you will, but just be really cognizant of that. Zone 1, what are the most important things to have near, but not on your work surface? Trust me on this one that if you have stuff that you have to go and get, and you do this all the time, you will find that it's going to end up staying in your zone 0. And we don't want that, right? If it's not zone 0 worthy, we don't want it to take up residence in zone 0. We want it to be in zone 1. So an example of something that has happened like that is my typewriter. I used to have it across from me, and every time I used it I would have to bring it over, and finally I just said, you know what, forget it, I'm just going to leave it right next to my desk. And it is in a case and it just sits up right underneath my table tidy, and that's fine, it works, and that's part of my zone 1, if you will. Otherwise it would end up on my desk, or I wouldn't end up using it at all because I knew it would take up space on my desk or my work surface. So other things that you might want to put in zone 1 are things that you often find on your desk over and over again, right? Maybe you should have them in zone 1 so that it's easily to put back. Zone 2, make sure you look at what's in zone 2. Is this the right spot for it? Does it need to be bumped up in importance? In other words, should it be in zone 1? Or is it something that you're no longer interested in? So let's say you're interested in a particular craft and you did that for a period of time and now it's no longer your thing. You don't want to get rid of everything because you think you'll take it up again, but it no longer needs prime zone 2 real estate. So maybe that is something you can move to zone 4 temporarily. Zone theory, you could consider things that you would access seasonally. So for instance, if you have Christmas supplies, you may want to box those up and store those in zone 3 because it's still accessible, it just requires a little more effort, and if you only have to do that once a year, that's not such a big deal. And zone 4, these are things that are rarely accessed, so you really need to be careful that you don't put stuff into zone 4 that really needs to leave the craft room, right? So if it's truly something that you are no longer interested in or use, maybe it is time for it to leave. Good things to put in zone 4 would be excess supplies. Things like if you bulk buy some adhesive, you know, you have enough rolls out to last you 6 months, let's say, and then you put the rest of it up in zone 4. So I am going to issue a warning at this point in time that we're going to start playing a game of dominoes, and I'm not talking the matching tile game of dominoes. I'm talking about where you stand dominoes on their end and you flick one and it scales down all the way and knocks everything over. We are going to do some juggling to make things work, and so just be prepared that that's going to happen, and having an understanding of what you have where and what can be moved and what needs to move is going to help you do this as efficiently as possible. So the exercise for this week is to identify your zones. What do you currently have in here? Should they be moved because they're better suited for a different zone? And what do you want to move into said zone? So that's the main task for this week. Before I sign off here, let's talk about previous week's homework and where you're at. You should have put away some of the items that you could put away because they already have a home. And so another thing that you can work on this week is to select another item within your craft room that you can put away. So I'm going to work on those Christmas supplies and get those put away. And if you have a bunch of stuff that doesn't have a home, you should have them into some sort of preliminary category, if you will. And if you haven't finished that yet, please continue to work on that before going too much further into the weekly videos. Okay? As always, please just do what you can. Don't worry about keeping up. I don't foresee the videos going anywhere anytime soon, and so it's really important that you keep your tasks manageable and that you achieve what you set out to do, okay? Because we don't want you getting discouraged. So that is it for this week. I will give you a midweek update with maybe my Christmas supplies and where I'm at with that. And until next time, happy crafting and happy organizing.